Alright, welcome to part 2 of building the anode and cathode containers. So, now that you've drilled both of your holes in your containers, you want to get out your DevCon welder and want to read the safety instructions on those, and just take some of the welder and squeeze some around the hole. Make sure you get a good amount on there. Alright, once you're done with that, you want to take your end cap, just the end cap of the tube, and you want to put some of the welder on that, and you will want to attach the end cap onto into the hole, and you want to hold it there for a good amount of time, probably 30 seconds to a minute or so. Should be fine. Just make sure it doesn't fall off once you take your hands off it. And once you do that to both of your containers, both of the end caps, you should wait for 10 hours. Make sure it dries nicely. Make sure it bonds very well. And after 10 hours, come back and take the tube of the compression fitting. So the end caps, one will be here, one will be right here, one will be right here, and then what you want to do after 10 hours is take the tube itself and just screw it in right in between the end caps. So after once you screw in the tube, you can let that sit as well. You don't necessarily have to let it sit for another 10 hours. You can just make sure to set it, for a considerable amount of time to make sure it doesn't fall. Once the tube is connected and your two end caps have nicely bonded to the container, you'll want to pour some water on one side of the container. It doesn't matter which side or which container. You would want to pour some water in there, and you want to test and see if any of the water is leaking. So, and leaking meaning like leaking through the holes of the container. If some of the water is going to flow through the tube and onto the other side of the container, that's not the leak. Don't worry about that. But the leak is in the hole. So if some of the water is, dripping from the hole, then you want to use some more of the bond and make sure you seal it. And make sure you fix that, because any leaks in the containers will mess up the readings and not allow you to proceed further with the microbial fuel cell. So once you have made sure that the containers are watertight and nothing's leaking, you are ready to proceed to the next step, which is to make the electrodes. Alright, to start making the electrodes, what you want to do is get your carbon cloth, and with some scissors you want to cut a square 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. So you can see it should be about this size right here, 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. Next, you want to take 4 pieces of the copper wire, and if you go back to the video on materials, you'll see the dimensions for that. But again, the dimensions again are, you need 12 pieces of copper wire, 18 inches each. So you'll want to cut 4 pieces of copper wire, 18 inches each, and what you will want to do is, on one end of the copper wire, you will want to strip off 6 inches of the insulator using your wire strippers, And on the other end of the copper wire, you'll want to strip 1 centimeter of copper wire from the other end. This is the bare copper wire that will be used later on in the microbial fuel cell. Next, what you will want to do is prepare the epoxy according to its directions. Now you will need to epoxy the 6 inches of bare copper wire that you cut off to the carbon cloth. And this part's very tricky because when I tried to, bend the copper wire, it would break very easily because, when you had to strip the copper wire, some of the parts became loose. So when trying to bend it into the square shape, you have to be very, very careful that you do it, patiently, and so you don't have to waste copper wire like I had to do. So once you get it into the square position, what I recommend is placing some epoxy, putting some epoxy on the copper wire itself, and when the copper wire, just turn the copper wire face down and just take your piece of carbon cloth and put it on there, and just pat it down and make sure to make sure that it covers the carbon cloth entirely. Once you do that to all four pieces of the carbon cloth, you will want to wait for 10 hours, make sure the epoxy has hardened and that doesn't fall off. You can shake it and stuff like that. Once that is done, you will want to recover your digital multimeter. I don't have it right now because it's already in my microbial fuel cell, but it's quite easy to show you what you have to do. So you have to take your digital multimeter and make sure it's off first, and take one of the multimeter leads and put it on the carbon cloth right here, and you would want to take the other one, the other multimeter lead, and place it on the bare copper wire right here. And once you've done that, turn the knob on the multimeter to ohms. It doesn't matter which number of ohms, just turn it to to any value of ohms. This is to test your resistance. And when you test your resistance has to be very, very low. My electrodes, when tested, they produced 0 to 0.01 resistance, which is very, very low resistance. And that's the amount you kind of want to have. Anything above that is, it's still, you can use it, but if it has like a very high resistance, like 1 or 2 or something, you want to remake your electrode, because it'll resist the current flow later on when you make the microbial fuel cell.